Dumb fun.
Somehow, heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Musical the Movie the Podcast. Musical the Movie the Podcast. Musical the Movie the Podcast with Andy and Steph. Whoa, hey, welcome in to episode 2 of Musical the Movie the Podcast. I'm Andy.
It's our third episode.
What'd I say?
You said 2.
Oh, welcome in to episode 3 of Musical the Movie the Podcast. How could I forget episode 2, which lasted the length of 5 episodes? You wouldn't know that, listener, because I did. I went in there like a surgeon. I got it down to a mean hour and a half of us talking about The Sound of Music because we accidentally talked about The Sound of Music for the length of The Sound of Music. But that was a great episode. We got all sorts of people's stories of going to Austria.
Do you know what I heard as a follow-up? I had someone tell me that the reason that you can't go into the gazebo in The Sound of Music is that an 80-year-old woman went in there and tried to do the dance and broke her hip.
My favorite part about that is that Charmaine Carr was 23 when she did it and she broke her ankle. And so it's like, why is the 80-year-old woman raw dogging it? You know what I mean? So
No, I don't know what you mean.
Charmaine Carr, she had all sorts of movie protections, I would assume.
Oh, I see. They had robust on-set movie protections in the 1960s, I'm sure.
Of course, for women, of course, and for young women. They took very good care of them. They didn't feed them lunches of cigarettes and milk. So we did The Sound of Music. We're back today with a scary, Steph, I'll say it, a scary little movie.
It's a horror.
It's a horror musical called The Little Shop of Horrors.
Of horrors.
Of horrors. I always overly pronounce that because I'm so afraid I'm going to say horror.
I just say horror every time.
Oh,
I
you do?
Look straight in your soul, and then I'm like, Little Shop of Horrors. I dare you to tell me I'm wrong.
The best little horror shop in Texas. By the way, I just want to say early on this one, if you have a movie that you want us to do, go ahead and tweet at us. I'm at Andy Fleming on Twitter, one M in Fleming, 2 Andys. And Steph is the easy to remember.
I'm at Storpsmop. What's so hard to remember about that?
Storpsmop. It's spelled the normal way. So just put in Storpsmop and tweet at both of us. Tell us what movies you want us to do on here. But for today, it is a little movie called Little Shop of Horrors.
Andy, what's your relationship to this movie?
Oh, man. So this is one of those things that was always kind of ubiquitous. And like my brothers were always like kind of like singing it around the house. Seemed like my dad loved it. But I don't think I really sat down and watched it till I was 30. And I really did, like, I loved it, and it seemed like I sort of knew it a little bit. Oh, I guess let me say this part too. My high school put this on while I was in high school, and it's one of the many plays that I did not get into. But I did go and see it. I didn't go see all of them after they didn't let me in. You know, I don't go to the shows that don't put me on either. But I went to go see this one, and I remember it. I remember, of course, those 3 white girls being the chorus at Christian Brothers High School. I remember the kid who is one of the football players was the plant, and he had to operate it and sing. He was white too, and they had to operate it and sing. And he had that deep bass voice. And I remember he would come out of the plant for his bow at the end, and he was so sweaty. And I was like, man, who would ever do that? And smash cut to me being Jabba the Hutt in the roast shows that I do here in Chicago and just sweating my ass off inside these things. But so I was really taken, actually, with this, granted, very white Christian Brothers High School Memphis performance of Little Shop of Horrors. Again, it wasn't until later till I finally saw the movie. But as soon as I saw the movie, took it in as an adult, I was way into it. I mean, this is everything you could ask for, I think, in a movie musical. What is your relationship to it, Steph?
It was like a horrible gap in my movie musical resume. Horrible. And even more so because we watched it horrible. Even more so because we watched it for the first time earlier this year, and I loved it immediately. Like, you got Menken in there just doing his absolute best work. It's a delight. It's everything that I love in a musical. It's everything that I love in an adaptation. It takes it to this really fun, campy level that, like, in my mind comes out of the 80s, but also, like, I don't know if that's true. It just feels very of its time, and it's a delight. And then we watched it again a little bit ago preparing for this podcast, and I think have been listening to the soundtrack nonstop since then.
A lot of bangers on this thing.
Just a lot of bangers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my relationship to it is new fave.
New fave. Problematic? I don't see, there's not a lot of problems with this thing.
Yeah, I mean,
there's not
we'll get into them.
We'll get into it. There's not a strong female, what I would call strong female lead, but there is a great female lead. But it could use some work. That's all I'll say. Why don't we bring in our guests? Have them talk about it.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'm gonna start with my guest, who has quickly become a favorite of the podcast. And I don't know, Andy, if you're familiar with this role on a stage show, but there's a type of understudy that's called a swing, and their job is that they know all of the parts of all of the parts, and they are standing by backstage ready to jump in case they need it. And it's just, they are the most impressive performers of all of the cast, no matter what. And so, you know, or you love her, our swing ensemble member Tina Hoff is here today to talk about it.
What up? I mean, don't butter me up too much, but oh my goodness.
When Steph called you a swing before the recording, I admit that's not what I thought it was a reference to. I did not know that term. I thought that we would have our first episode without you, Tina, because you were the guest on episode 1. You were backup vocals. Actually, no, not backup vocals. You straight up duetted with me on episode 2.
Yeah.
And then here you are back on episode 3. You are not on the song this time, though.
I mean, this is what a great time to find out that I'm not on the song. Thanks. Appreciate that. No, I'm happy to be back on. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for doing it. You're filling in, last minute, but what a treat. What a gift. And another gift, my guest, of course, we always have a guest from the world of comedy, a guest from the world of theater. My guest from the world of comedy, one of my favorite comics in Chicago. He's a regular on the character assassination shows I do at the Laugh Factory, and he also is the in-arena MC for, it seems like, 7 different Indiana sports teams. But I'll get him to tell me more about that. Marz Timms is here. Hi, Marz.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. What teams do you work for?
I was with the Chicago Bulls, the Blackhawks minor league team out in Rockford, the Ice Hogs, and the Kenosha Kingfish in Wisconsin.
Wow, wait, big surprise face from Steph for some reason.
Beautiful Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Shout out to the homeland.
Yeah, you are on here with 2 women from the great Dairyland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hey, can you tell us about your little co-star on the Zoom today, Marz?
Oh, this is Charlie, or Charles, as I call him, because it seems to be a little more regal and sophisticated like he is. But
he's
a very regal pup.
Yeah.
Yes, he's very much a lapster. So I can't leave him anywhere else. He will come and find me to get in my lap.
Well, Marz, why don't we start with you? Tell me about what your relationship is to Little Shop.
Well, I've heard about it forever since it first came out. My mother was a big fan of it, so I didn't know too much about it, but I did know some of the songs. My favorite part was Audrey 2, the plant. And as a kid and doing what I do now, which is a lot of voiceover work, I just loved the voice of Audrey 2. And my sister and I would run around all the time just going, "Feed me, Seymour!"
And then you ate blood, right?
Yes, and then we would go out and kill people that were mean to us in the neighborhood. And eat their blood.
Just squinting at the dentist like you're next.
But I didn't really watch the movie in total until I played Audrey 2 in the roast. So that was a couple of months ago.
Yeah, we did a show called Roast the Musical, which was all characters from musicals roasting each other. Roast the Musical has been a concept we've talked about forever, and since you've been doing the shows, I've been like, well, Marz is Audrey 2. Marz is going to be Audrey 2. We'll put a picture of it up when we post the episode, but a costume by Steph that looked amazing.
Amazing costume. Absolutely loved it.
A converted Kermit the Frog costume.
Yes.
And then what do you think when you finally sat down and watched it? Like, do you think it holds up as a movie?
Oh, absolutely. It holds up. Just from beginning to end, it's like a Rocky Horror Picture Show in that you can always go back and always enjoy it and watch it. And you'll hear things like I'd heard things in the past that I didn't know came from that movie.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, that's where that's from. That's amazing.
I do want to say that it's actually weird how much Rocky Horror and this have in common in that they are both these like throwback B-movie musicals with the word horror in the title that like preeminently like use like doo-wop or old rock and roll as a through line. Tina, I think I know the answer to this, but what is your relationship to not Rocky Horror, to Little Shop?
I was like, are we taking this one in a different direction? All of a sudden we're going to talk about Rocky Horror. I have never seen it. Never. It wasn't on my radar. And Steph, after like hearing you say you also just hadn't seen it until, fairly recently, I wonder if it's kind of the product of the kind of musicals that we were exposed to in our high school days or kind of around, right? But I saw it for the first time today while I was working. I had it on at the office. So I don't know if I would enjoy it a lot more if I was with people or could super focus on it. It was good. I enjoyed it. I love the music. I feel like it warrants a second watch, and so I'm kind of hoping to get some vibes today on the pod to kind of help me with that. But I knew a girl in high school in college, who her entire personality was that her high school did Little Shop of Horrors. And so maybe I've avoided it until now, because she was like one of the three women. Of course, hers was probably also all white girls. And that was her personality, she was in Little Shop of Horrors.
I literally just saw a girl put an hour ago on Reddit. I saw that someone had posted, hey, I live in Sweden and my high school is doing West Side Story, and this is like my last chance to be in a musical, and there's no Latino people auditioning for this, and like this is should I audition for Maria or Anita? Should I do this? And it's just like I don't know if this is the platform to talk about it, but like I don't know what you do about that stuff, man.
Hey, if you're in a place that's devoid of and you don't have anybody that can do it, then as long as they're not darkening up her skin or anything, absolutely go for it.
I mean, our school did Aida, which, looking back, probably wasn't a great choice.
It's not a choice that, like, we would make again today.
Right.
I eat her?
I eat
Aida. Yes, I eat her.
No, that's Audrey, too.
Oh, okay. Her eat I.
I don't know Aida.
There's not a movie of it for some reason, but I've only heard the songs through Steph. It's a great Elton John, Tim Rice musical. Is it about African queen?
Yeah, it's the story of Egyptian royalty and their colonizing of Nubia, which is down the river. And so there's like this level too of like the white people versus the black people and how much it sucks to be a colonizer.
I love that. I did not know that it's literally about Nubia.
Oh yeah.
Like, are there song lyrics about like
the gods love Nubia?
Yeah.
Okay,
The gods love Nubia.
The gods love Nubia is the Act 1 closer, and it is maybe my favorite Act 1 closer that I know. It is transformational.
That's funny.
So imagine a bunch of white high schoolers,
Right.
but it sounded good. It sounded good. The visuals, not so much.
Well, let's talk about this movie. So this movie, Little Shop of Horrors, it's based on a 1960s Roger Corman B movie. And at some point in 81 or 82, Menken and what's his writing partner's name? Do we know?
Howard Ashman, I think.
Ashman, Menken and Ashman. What I'm confused about and what I can't find any information about is who tells them to do this, or do they just do it because they want to? But they decide to write a musical based on this B movie about a plant that eats people, Little Shop of Horrors. This is like how remakes should be done. Like, you should not remake good movies. You should remake bad movies and make them good. They put it off Broadway. It starts to get popular, and so it moves up. They take off and they move it to off Broadway. And then it gets picked up by, at one point, Martin Scorsese is attached to direct this thing, with Steven Spielberg producing it. And it somehow falls into the lap of Frank Oz. And boy, am I glad it did, because this dude knows what to do with puppets. Yeah, this is Fozzie Bear directing this movie. And the only things that he had directed before this were The Dark Crystal, which he co-directs with Jim Henson, and Muppets Take Manhattan, one of the best Muppet movies, I think. Yeah. And so this is like his first thing out from under the watchful eye of Jim Henson.
Man,
And
what a step. This really does feel like you do your first round, you get to know stuff, you do your second round, you improve, and then you're on your third flick, and you're just like, what if I take a giant swing towards murder?
I gotta say, I'm glad that this movie was in the hands of somebody who had that puppeteering experience and that background, because I'm trying to imagine, again, I haven't seen this on stage, I'm trying to imagine how a big big puppet looks this good on stage, because the film, the way that it's shot and the puppeteering is so incredible. Like, it really makes that puppet come alive. So thinking about it as like a static stage show, probably have to have somebody pretty good in that, but yeah, this movie was in good hands.
So they're doing a lot with like playback speed in order to get the puppet to look as good as it does in the movie. And it really works. It's really good. But like we watched, so the closing number from the movie Mean Green Mother from Outer Space was nominated for an Oscar, and we watched this morning Levi Stubbs' performance of it at the Oscars, and the plant it's just like going up and down like Pac-Man.
Like a little clamshell Pac-Man behind Levi Stubbs.
And this is the Oscars, so like I have to think that on stage that's pretty much all it can do, but on film I don't know what they did or how they got this thing's mouth to move the way it did. There is not a point where it does not look like the actual voice of Levi Stubbs is coming out of that plant.
Yeah.
And this is something like even Jim Henson, like I saw a thing that said Jim Henson praised the movie, and I was like, oh, what did he say? And I researched it, and he said the lip sync on the plant in that film is just absolutely amazing.
He's not wrong. He is not wrong.
All right. So we open with an overture, some opening credits, and an ominous scroll because it's 1986. And for some reason, we think that all movies need to come with a little written prologue. But honestly, it's just like it's sort of like a big chord, but it's like drawn out with words. And it quickly goes away to a streetscape. We're now in the early 1960s. You can tell because the ominous scroll told us, and we meet our Greek chorus that they're going to stay with us for the whole show. Their names are Ronette, Crystal, and Chiffon. They're played by Tina Arnold, Michelle Weeks, and a debut Tisha Campbell.
Yeah, I gotta ask, Tina, you being the youngest person here, when you see those three women, is there anything that jumps out at you about them?
No.
Okay.
Should it have?
Well, the fact is that two of them went on to co-star together on Martin.
Yeah, that was the first thing that jumped out to me.
Yeah. Is that you got Pam and Gina from Martin are on this. And then the third lady's name again, Steph, is
Michelle Weeks.
Michelle Weeks. And she's great too, but there's something about, I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just because I grew up crushing on her so bad, but like Tisha Campbell just seems like a star to me in this movie.
She really does. They get, and I kind of want to talk about it just straight off the bat because they're going to be around and they kind of jump back and forth between being our Greek chorus and like singing right at the camera and giving us all of this exposition. And then in other scenes, they'll be in costume, in a more muted costume that fits in with the rest of the scene, and they're like interacting with the characters, and it's such a great, I didn't know where it came from. We watched the 19, I don't know like what this device is. I do know that Alan Menken is going to borrow from himself and repeat it in the movie Hercules. But it's so effective, and like because they're looking right into the camera and talking right to us, so like we get all of their just like flirty energy.
I don't know how to explain this either, but the editing in this sequence is seamless. They'll be dancing and then they'll turn to a camera to the right, and it just looks like it was all done in one. And also the way that, and this goes for the next number too, because we go, I think, pretty much right into the next number, Skid Row. The way that it's framed with like extras coming out of windows and singing songs, and they all sound like Muppets. Like, this is the benefit of having a Muppet performer directing this movie, is that he knows how to stage a big sketchy performance like this.
Yeah.
It's also worth saying that like, this thing is all filmed on a soundstage that they turned into this Skid Row, this one neighborhood, and that sort of gives it this feeling of like, it just gives it this feeling of like, oh, we are in a fake place, and it sort of heightens the playness of it a little bit without it feeling too much like a play.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm gonna call them RCC because they don't really have any other name. They're giving us the prologue, the Little Shop of Horrors, and then it does immediately transition into Skid Row. We meet Seymour Krelborn, who is played by Rick Moranis. He works at Mushnick's Flower Shop, and he is crushing on his colleague Audrey, who wears fishnets and a little black dress to her job at a flower shop. They take us into this Belle, Beauty and the Beast, like the whole town singing number, except instead of like celebrating their provincial French life, they're lamenting their terrible Skid Row life.
Yeah, it is like it's like an I want number for basically the whole town. Like the whole town gets to sing what they want during this song.
And that is to what you were saying about the having a set built, that like it gives it that ability to like really anchor us in this place. And it like when people talk about like New York being the fifth character, it's very much like Skid Row is going to be an element of this story.
I gotta say, as we're listening to this beautiful recap, and you were, Andy, talking about kind of popping up on the windows like Muppets, as I'm remembering it in my mind with Muppets included in the ensemble. And I love it, and I kind of wish that this was real because it's great in my mind.
I was still just thinking back to the three singers in the beginning, Tashina Arnold and Tisha Campbell, and how they were kind of like a Destiny's Child before Destiny's Child with Beyonce and Michelle and all of them.
It's worth noting that their names are all doo-wop groups, like girl groups from the 50s and 60s, just Fonz, the Crystals, and the Ronettes.
Oh yeah. See, that went right over my head.
And then I'll also say that I was like, man, we were watching this again a couple days ago, and I was like, man, Tisha Campbell, just a star, isn't she? And Steph is like, maybe it's just that like they didn't really know how to light black people yet, and so she's light skinned, so she's the best lit of the.
That's a really good observation. Yeah. Yes,
there really are like justice for all dark skinned people.
Yeah.
They need ring lights.
Good point.
So we meet Skid Row, and then we go back into the Mushnick's flower shop and find out that Mr. Mushnick is going to close this god and customer forsaken place. And Audrey suggests that he might have more success by displaying an unusual plant that Seymour owns. I wrote here, it would seemingly bring the number of displayed plants in this shop up to a total of 1. It's really like... They're really showing that Mushnick is not trying to sell beautiful things here.
I should mention that we also watched the 1960 version today while we were working in preparation for this. And at some point, Mr. Mushnick says, "I hate plants and I hate flowers." And I was like, that makes so much more sense for the Mushnick in the 86 version, because there's no plants, no flowers on display.
Yeah, so... Okay, so here now we are introduced to Audrey too. We find out that Seymour has named Audrey to this as a tribute to Audrey,
which by today's standards would be quite creepy.
Yeah, but she's thrilled by it.
Right. I kind of think it's creepy then too, but right, she is not. She is tickled.
Yeah.
The squeak she does when she does this like extremely high-pitched squeak. I literally was like, huh, and I kind of jumped in my chair. It was amazing.
It's an otherworldly reaction.
Yes.
And the other thing that I noticed here is that we move the camera to Audrey 2's perspective. So like Mushnick and Seymour and Audrey are all like looking down on the camera. And so we kind of just like immediately get this, it's part of what we were talking about before. We get the sense that like this thing is alive and this thing is different than other plants.
And it's also a way to not show you the plant for a while, because the second he brings it in, we switch to the plant's perspective.
We build up some suspense.
Yeah. Is now a good time to mention, too, that we have a Venus flytrap in the house. Tina, on your last episode, we mentioned that we named our turtle after Asparagus the theater cat. We'd also have a Venus flytrap, but we did not name it Audrey 2 or 3. We named it Tyson after Mike Tyson.
That's good.
He's a vicious friend.
Mm-hmm. And a weird face tattoo.
So we get Audrey 2's perspective. They put it into the window, and immediately we get our first cameo. We haven't talked. This movie is full of just delightful cameos that are performances that like fully go to 11, pun intentional, because this first one is Christopher Guest. And he plays. He has a name. I didn't write it down.
It's called The First Customer.
Yeah. Okay.
In all caps, yeah.
And he's giving this like, he's like dead faced but over animated and like kind of looks like he's a robot, but he's really into this plant. And it's just a delight. And his whole function there is to be the first person who comes in and says, "Wow, look at that plant."
Yeah, I don't know if his body moves once he stops walking, and I don't know if the corner of his mouth move away from his ears. He's just got this weird Joker smile on, and he says, "Wow, look at that plant in the window." I mean, it's like this B-movie performance. It's really fascinating, really funny. Because, yeah, this movie is filled with basically sketch comedy people. You know, we have Rick Moranis, and then we're going to have Steve Martin. We're going to have John Candy and even a Belushi in there later. Not, you know, one of the good ones, but a Belushi.
But one of them.
Yeah.
So then we get a little cut scene to the discovery of Audrey 2, which is, you know, we're talking about whether this movie is problematic. I think that there is a little bit of caricature here in the Chinese flower shop that he finds this plant in. Our RCC girls are back. The song is called "Da Do," and they're doing just like a great little doo-wop. As Seymour narrates how he found this plant during a random total solar eclipse. And then we see like a lightning strike that just sort of like strikes Audrey 2 into being.
This is, by the way, the most explanation we're going to get for why Audrey 2 exists, is that there's a solar eclipse, suddenly a bolt, and then Audrey 2 is sitting there where the strange Chinese man sells his strange Chinese plants.
That makes sense, yeah.
It makes sense to me.
And the chorus girls are also wearing kimonos.
Oh, yeah,
though
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's Japanese.
Yes.
Yeah. But, you know, it's the 80s. It's a different time. Yeah. It's a different time in a movie about a different time.
Yeah. Like early 80s.
Yeah.
Or 86.
I think, 86. Mm-hmm. But again, it's based, I don't know if we've mentioned this, but it is based in seemingly maybe the early 60s, 61, 62.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that it's not later than 62 because one of the things that Audrey 2 is going to say later is offering Seymour a guest spot on Jack Parr. And Jack Parr stopped hosting The Tonight Show by 1962.
That's just a thing you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, oh, Andy.
So after we meet Audrey 2, we pretty much immediately go into Seymour's like nice guy anthem "Grow for Me," in which he's lamenting that like he's doing all of these nice things and giving Audrey 2 all of this care, and she gives him nothing. That's literally the lyrics. Sometime in the song, he accidentally pricks his finger, and Audrey gives him one of the, like a little like baby suckling face. And so we discover that what Audrey 2 needs to thrive is human blood. Also, this is, I think, our first instance of Seymour calling it Tui, which is just a very sweet little nickname.
We also get what I would call a disturbingly long shot of Rick Moranis sucking his own finger. That like must have had to have like, you know, I'm sure it had to look a certain way so that the plant could mimic the sound, but like, and how long did he actually have to do it on the day? You know, I always wonder about these things. Yeah, it's so funny that you call it a nice guy anthem. I've never thought about the straight line to this song of, you know, I've given you sunlight and potash and all these things, and why won't you grow is so similar to I held the door for you, why won't you fuck me?
Exactly. But Audrey 2 likes blood. And so Audrey 2 gets some blood, and just immediately, like, we get a scene of roots like popping out of the Maxwell House container, and just like inhuman, it's not human, it's a plant, but unearthly growth.
Oh, there you go.
I knew that this plant was going to grow because, you know, I kind of knew the conceit of the show. I was kind of waiting. I was like, ooh, what's the puppet going to look like when it gets bigger? Like, how are they going to do it? And I was like very, very pleased with the outcome there.
I read about how in the play often they will have Seymour has a fake arm that's holding the plant, and that he's actually using his other hand to operate the puppet live.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Some good Frank Oz shit.
Yeah, I love me some fake limbs on the stage.
That's right. That's right. You can ask our friend Big Bird about that. Big Bird's got a dead arm, so he can operate the head.
Oh, I was like, what's the reference here?
Yeah.
What am I missing?
Yeah.
I got there.
Big Bird.
Yeah. I think he got some nerve damage in Nam, and so that one arm doesn't work.
Okay, that makes more sense. An arm free to work the mouth. No.
Andy, Andy, I believed you. I felt like the puppeteer. Like, I was like, oh, wow. Thanks for the trivia.
Was it Gore? Was it Gore that had a dead arm, and so he'd like stick a pin?
Or sorry, Bob Dole. Bob Dole.
Bob Dole. Yeah, had a dead arm, and he'd just stick a pin in it.
Yeah,
and it just move around.
Yeah, that's what Big Bird should have done. Big Bird just should have had a pin in there in his Viagra ads and everything. That's another Bob Dole reference, Tina. I know you're very young.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so now we're going to get our second fun cameo. Seymour is becoming a local celebrity, and to showcase that, he's going to go on a radio show called Wink Wilkinson's Weird World. Wink Wilkinson, of course, played by none other than John Candy. And the only thing I really wanted to highlight here is that we get a shot of Audrey 2, like, trying to snack on a producer's butt.
Yeah.
It's the first documented case of eating ass.
Yes, that's right.
I don't think she enjoyed it quite as much as...
No. Getting her salad tossed by a Venus fly.
By an actual salad.
Yeah. By an actual salad.
Yeah. When, after Steph had texted me to ask if I could come on today, I was Googling on my phone this movie to see where I could watch it, for free. And the trailer for the movie comes up and it autoplays on Google. And just the only shots were like, Rick Moranis in this plant, and then the shot of that woman's ass just going back and forth, auto-playing on Google. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm in for some ass.
Little ass.
In for a treat.
We're 3 for 3 now talking about buttholes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess that's true.
That's true.
I do want to say that my absolute favorite thing about this scene is that it is a radio show to showcase weird things. So he brings in the plant, and literally the very first thing that Wink says to him is, boy, I wish you guys could see this. It's like, well, what's the point?
I also like that they have a bunch of weird people in the waiting room to get on the show. There's like a mummy or something, or like a nun. There's like just a big giant doll with just like this dead-eyed look in its face, and then like a bunch of just weird people to be on this radio show that no one can see.
Man, I thought I was going to be able to clock them all, but there is definitely a nun mannequin.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember what the other things were, but again, yeah, I'm sure for every one of them, Wink is just like, God, I wish you guys could see this. It's a nun, it's a mannequin, it's a nun. Oh God, I wish you could see it.
That's how I feel right now with the listeners. I wish they could see the Jack Skellington in Andy's window on the Zoom. God, I wish you guys could see it.
The backpack over here on the side, all the various costumes and props.
Now, is that backpack supposed to have evil eyes, or does it have like a hat?
There's a fedora on it, but the eyebrows.
God, I wish you guys could see this. God.
So, props to John Candy doing his best here.
I did read that John Candy was offered Mushnik. And he was like, is there anything smaller?
I just didn't want that big of a commitment.
I guess so.
Maybe tax purposes, maybe?
Yeah. He was like, work with Rick Moranis. No.
So then we go back and we see Audrey with her sadistic boyfriend, Oren Scrivello, who is a dentist and is played by Steve Martin. And I don't know how I never knew that this was a Steve Martin moment, but what a Steve Martin moment.
Yeah.
Truly, he's incredible. He's singing, like he's doing a rockabilly type song. And we know he loves the banjo and all the various accoutrements that come with that. But the way, his performance in this is incredible. It's also the only movie that Steve Martin and Bill Murray are both in.
Wild.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and it's the only time I've seen Steve Martin with dark hair.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My first big memory is Father of the Bride, and that movie is 4 years after this, and he is all white there.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, much like the cast of Little Shop at my high school.
And Friend.
But so is his first appearance his song?
No, so we meet him briefly as he's beating up Audrey.
Cool.
And then she, from there, dreams of her life in the suburbs with Seymour, somewhere that's green.
Oh boy, let's talk about it. Okay. There's no reason this song should work for me, and yet I think this song fucking slaps. Ellen Green, I've been holding back because I wanted to wait until we got here to talk about it. Ellen Green does so much with so little in this whole performance as Audrey. The character has no agency. The character is not strong. And yet you can't take her eyes off of her every time she's on screen.
She has such a deep perspective, and like you can't not watch her. She's doing the most all the time.
Definitely the first few minutes I was like, I don't know if I can watch this voice she's doing the whole time. And then by halfway through, like I was 100% on board. I was like, nope, I love this. Just A+.
Her singing voice too. She's clearly doing an Audrey voice, and then there are sometimes in a song where she just like lets it out to wail, and it is incredible.
So she's the only person in this that was on the original stage production. She was on the first production off-Broadway, both off-Broadway and in the West End. And then they tried to get Cyndi Lauper for this part for the movie, and Cyndi Lauper couldn't do it. It kind of would have been interesting.
Yeah.
There's rumors that Barbara Streisand was offered the part.
But she also was like, is there something smaller?
But then eventually Frank Oz is like, I'm just going to go with Ellen Green. She nailed this part on Broadway, and I really can't imagine anyone else doing this part. I mean, I can't imagine someone else making such a meal out of such a weak character. Her singing is the only thing, like, you don't even really think about that Rick Moranis is not a singer until he's duetting with Ellen Green.
Yeah, I hear that.
And he's just like, suddenly see more, and she's like, suddenly see more.
She's like, no, get out of here. This is what it sounds like. The other thing that I wanted to highlight in this song, we get like just a brief moment of a Mary Poppins like cartoon bird as she's doing her little hallucination about the suburbs, and it's just such a choice, and it's usually the kind of thing that I hate in a little one-off like that. Like, I like it to be sort of grounded, but I love it here because everything else is so absurd. Like, might as well be a little cartoon bird.
Yeah. Also, I do want to mention that the life that she really wants with Seymour sounds like a fucking nightmare. She mentions that they will go to bed at 9:15 every night. And she mentions that they will watch Lucy on their big, enormous 12-inch screen, which I get. That's a time joke. I get that. But she talks about having plastic on the furniture. That's her fantasy. Her ultimate fantasy is to have plastic on the furniture to keep it neat and clean.
Sounds like my grandma and my aunts.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that is what the women of this era, the 60s, wanted, I guess.
Yeah. Keep it clean. Keep it clean. I like that the way it was filmed, it was very much a film except for the songs. And then it looked more like a stage play, the way that it was shot.
Yeah.
And just like the depth of the shots, and it looks like it's on this big stage, and the camera is just filling in parts, whereas when it's all just the acting part, it's like, all right, you're living right along with these characters, and then when they're singing, it's like, all right, now I'm actually watching a musical, and the sound just creates such a picture for you.
It helps us capture like the energy between all of the actors too, because we're not like the camera's not in the way of us watching it, because it's doing these like big shots where we get everyone.
It's worth noting that this is shot at Pinewood Studios, which is a famous studio in England where they shoot all the Bond movies. And this was in fact shot on what they call the 007 stage, which is this giant stage that they use for a lot of Bond movies. And it's so big that they can't really heat it practically. And so Rick Moranis and Ellen Green would have to keep ice cubes in their mouth so that there wouldn't be visible breath.
Wow.
What a nightmare.
Wow.
Yeah.
We should definitely cut this out of the podcast. But I'm in nursing school now, and I just learned that that's like an effective tool for fertility, is to cool yourself down right before you fuck.
Wait, in what way? What do? Do you like step into a walk-in fridge, or we're not cutting this out. I want to be very clear about that.
What I was learning about, the study that I was reading about, was with mice, and so I think they do just like stick the mice in a fridge.
They don't give them little tiny ice cubes.
No. Yeah.
But wait, that doesn't make sense because when you're in your fertile window, I'm a mom, I know all about the fertile window, you guys. When you're in your fertile window, your body temperature is higher, right?
Yeah, but it's something about the reason for the scrotum, which is, by the way, the name of my
that's
new
what our
podcast.
Christmas cards
Yeah. Is that the testicles like to be a little bit cooler, and so that's why they're outside of your body a little bit.
But it's a
more.
blanket.
Yeah, but it's a blanket that's like away from all of your guts and stuff.
That's
But then it needs a blanket because it's very precious. It's very precious, the scrotum.
This is my new favorite podcast within a podcast.
Yes.
is Steph giving little like
Nursing
this is
school
what I
corner.
learned in nursing school.
You're listening to Fertile Ground, the podcast within the podcast.
The fertile window.
Okay, wait, one more question about Somewhere That's Green. Do you think it's weird for her to be singing her last name like that? Because her real name is Ellen Green, and she has to sing this song where she sings the word green. I mean, that's weird, right? Imagine if you had to sing Somewhere That's Smith.
I mean, but every time you talk about like a flamingo, you're not like flamingo.
I'm sorry, wait, I'm sorry. Were you talking to me?
Yeah. What?
Marz, what about like when you talk about like space? Are you like, that's me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All the time. Whenever I hear someone say it, I'm like,
Something that used to happen to me in school is anytime a teacher would be talking and they would go, and that I would freak out for a second because I thought they were about to call on me. My ears would perk up.
I don't have that. I'm just, because there's literally another Stephanie Smith in my grade. She used to like get my mail.
Stephanie M and Stephanie.
That's right. We probably shouldn't say that on the.
Oh, whoops.
ooh, that part will definitely be cut out. Cut that out, leave in fertile window.
From Appleton, Wisconsin.
What about, I guess when people say blacksmith, you're like, oh, that's definitely not me.
Yeah, as previously mentioned.
There's a lot of people that would look up,
Right.
though.
There are a lot of blacksmiths.
There are a lot of blacksmiths.
We should do that again. We should make last names. We should call it like Jones, instead of Smiths. Like, we should bring that back. Like, I'm a Coffee Jones. I guess Jones means you want something.
Yes.
Coffee Jones.
See, now this is what's getting cut out.
Jonesin'.
So yeah, Somewhere That's Green. It's just a beautiful little dream, and then from there we go to a montage. Some Fun Now is the song. Ain't we having some fun now? And we are. We just like get this montage of how great Audrey 2 has revitalized the shop. And then we like sort of see that juxtaposed with seeing Seymour being physically drained because he is bloodletting himself to feed this plant.
And this is a calypso number, which is interesting because everything else is kind of doo-woppy, and this is sort of calypso-y. And it does seem like something that they sort of put in because they just needed the plot to move along faster.
I see that.
I mean, this movie is like a tight 90, though. Like,
It's great.
And by the way, we haven't even gotten to the plant talking yet.
oh Jesus.
The plant hadn't even sung its first word yet.
Well, I think, and we talked about this, like the plant starts talking like pretty much exactly halfway through, and we're almost there. Because the only thing that happens between now and then is that the dentist, which is the name of the song, we just get this like whole scene of Oren, the sadistic dentist, being a sadistic dentist, also featuring, like, he doesn't even make it to my little recap, but featuring the Bill Murray cameo as the masochist who goes to the dentist to get off.
Yeah.
That's not exaggerating. Like, if anything, that's underselling this part as written.
Yeah. He was really good, too.
Before we get to Bill Murray, I want to talk about the song Dentist, because it's incredible. Steve Martin sings the shit out of it. The only problem I have with it is that his mom tells him, your temperament's wrong for the priesthood, and teaching would suit you still less. And I went to Catholic school, and there's no two better occupations for sadists than priests and teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what we do also have to talk about here? There's this great shot, because this movie is directed by Frank Oz, that's like inside the patient's mouth, and there are like these other lips around it. Oh, it's so beautiful.
And it's like, I mean, something like that, like it's 5 seconds of the movie, and it probably costs $20,000, you know what I mean?
Worth it.
To make this big mouth that goes around the camera. It's incredible.
Where do you think that mouth lives now?
There's all sorts of dentists. I think they probably use it for a lot of the dentist horror movies, like The Dentist and Dead Ringers. Oh, that's a gynecologist movie, but maybe they repurposed it. like we did with the Kermit costume, made it into the plant.
Teeth and all.
I also like the little girl that has the big metal headgear all over her mouth, and it's all because as a kid I had to wear one of those, and I was just like, that is torturous, and it just
traumatizing.
Yeah, there's just like this complete metal, like it's something out of the movie Saw, where you get like 30 seconds to disarm it and get it off, or else it rips your jaw open.
But so yeah, then Bill Murray comes in a part that we were surprised when we watched the original today to find that role is Jack Nicholson in 1960.
Oh wow!
And he's very funny. Like the movie is not worth watching, the 1961. But if you can just Google Jack Nicholson scene, he's great. He fully commits to this part of someone who's delighted by the idea of being worked on by the dentist.
And he's much more like terrifying, whereas Bill Murray is delighted. Like, and it's not. I mean, it is terrifying in total, but his performance is just tickled. He's tickled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Apparently nothing was scripted for him to say while he's in the chair, and he just kept improvising all these things, and the editors just fucking hated it because they had to piece something together out of 3 days of him riffing.
That checks out. So then Oren the dentist picks Audrey up for a date, and Seymour closes up the shop watching them.
He's brought with him a little hit of laughing gas.
I forgot about that.
He has like little canisters of laughing gas that he brings with him everywhere he goes.
It's sort of like Chekhov's laughing gas. And now we finally get to smooth baritone of Levi Stubbs comes out of Audrey 2 asking Seymour to feed him. And we get Feed Me.
Feed me, Seymour.
Incredible. This song is incredible. There's not a song that Levi Stubbs... honestly, Levi Stubbs' entire performance in this movie is inspired. The casting of him was inspired, and his performance is like... For someone who's not an actor to have this much charisma and this much... He's clearly doing things that there's no way to write down in a script. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so one thing I like that this song does is he's asking Seymour to feed him, and he's like, your life will improve. I'll get you everything you need. And then when Seymour starts singing, it goes back to the nerdy doo-wop sort of music behind him. And it's not until Audrey 2 has convinced Seymour to kill that Seymour finally sings over the more rock and roll music. Just a little musical note that I noticed.
It's lovely. Lovely is a weird word. It's
Excellent.
That Mencken, he knows what he's doing.
He does.
Mm-hmm.
But so Rick Moranis is someone in particular who would have to sing face to face with the plant, but he would be singing at a much slowed down playback so that they could play it back at double speed and make the plant look better.
Oh,
interesting.
Well, it works, and Seymour goes, and I don't know, like he's got a gun, so like obviously his plan is to kill the dentist. But instead of having to do that, Oren the dentist has this like Ghostbusters backpack laughing gas thing and just asphyxiates himself conveniently.
I was in a meeting when this scene was going on the first time, and so I had like one headphone in, and like by the end of the scene I was like, wait, what the fuck just happened? So I had to watch it over again. God, I hope my boss never listened to this. I had to watch it again. I was like, oh, okay. I get it now.
It does happen sort of suddenly, and you can tell that it's this way to sort of kill the dentist without having Seymour be directly responsible.
Right. He's still the likable good guy.
Yeah, we were talking about the morality play of it all, which is, I think, much more pronounced in the 1960 movie.
And even in the stage play, which has a more morality-centered ending, which we'll get to. We'll talk about it.
I don't want to, I mean, with this whole thing where just the dentist kind of, this accidental overdose or whatever, you know, it wasn't Seymour's fault, he didn't kill, but, like, later he, like, murders a dude who he's known for a lot, like that,
Yeah, exactly. It's like a way of like dipping your toe in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But the dentist is just like a way worse dude. Like, yeah.
He sure looks like plant food to me. It would have been fine with it if he had killed him. But instead, he asphyxiates and as he's dying, Steve Martin, who is both playing, for some reason, I just realized he's doing a Southern accent in this character for some reason.
Yeah.
And so as he's dying, he goes, "What'd I ever do to you?" And Seymour says, "It's not what you did to me, it's what you did to her." And how out of it he is, he says, "Her who?" And then his last words are, "Oh, her." And then he dies.
Wow.
Her.
And Seymour Seymour carries his dead body back to the shop.
And then fully dismembered, like we get like a classic axe murderer shot of him dismembering the body with an axe because Audrey is not yet, spoiler alert, big enough to eat a whole body whole. Somewhere in here we get Suddenly Seymour from Audrey, where she's like immediately over the disappearance of her boyfriend and just now is in love with Seymour.
I believe also we see Mr. Mushnick sees him dismembering.
That happens.
Yeah.
That happens after.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we see Audrey. We see like their little love song, and then he goes home and dismembers him, and Mushnick sees this happening and
Blackmails?
yeah, but just like kind of like thinks. What must Mushnick think about that moment? If you have this guy who's just been like a meek little dude living in your basement and then all of a sudden you see an axe murderer, I guess that is why we have that trope.
It's always the quiet ones.
But then also, I mean, what I love, and we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but Mushnick doesn't rat him out immediately. He goes home, I guess, and thinks about it. And he realizes that if Seymour goes away, the plant will go away. And so he has to try and figure out a way to make it work for him still.
Because he's making so much money on the plant.
Yeah, which is, again, sort of, it's all the morality play of it. We're trying to keep Seymour a little bit clean so that he can get away clean. But it's questionable. I want to talk about Suddenly Seymour because this is the real nice guy anthem to me. This song is clearly written by a man who hates makeup. There are 3 different references in this song to wash off your mascara, wipe that lipstick away, like you don't need that makeup. You can just be the person you are. And this was clearly written by one of those guys who's like, you guys wear makeup and that's a lie.
Written in the key of slut shaming.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's like also presented as this like very lovely, the culmination of them finally getting the release of them finally like admitting their love for each other and being able to be together.
Even though because of how rhymes work, the lyric is Seymour's my friend.
That's really true, huh?
And not my lover or boyfriend.
Boyfriend, it's right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Mushnick is trying to blackmail Seymour into so this is, Andy, you pointed this out earlier, that the blackmail does not involve Audrey to going away or getting rid of it at all. It's entirely Seymour has to leave town, and then Mushnick gets to keep Audrey too.
And retain all the boons that come with that.
Yeah. It should make a whole lot of sense to me, because if Mushnick just like turned him into the cops, he would keep the plant anyway, right?
Well, because Mushnick didn't see him feeding the plant, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, he just sees the dismembering, so he hasn't really like put it together. But he's about to, because the way that we get out of this predicament is Seymour walks Mushnick. Mushnick's like walking backwards, and Seymour just kind of like walks him into the mouth of Audrey too, who swallows him whole.
Horrifying. A little shop of horrors. It's a vor thing. I'm not into it. It's just awful.
Did you say vor?
Vor.
What is vor?
Oh, I don't know if we have time to get into it.
Is this like tentacle porn?
It could be.
It's a little worse than worse is.
Oh, now who's shaming? All right, I'm just going to Google Vor Urban Dictionary.
No. Okay.
Yeah, let me know what it means.
Let's see. Vor, a fetish in which one fantasizes about being eaten alive or eating another creature alive, which is also known as, and I'm going to pronounce this very carefully, phagophilia.
What?
And I guess importantly, I don't want to slut shame. If you're into Vor.
Oh, I'm a kink shame you. If Vor's... No, I guess I shouldn't. I shouldn't.
We shouldn't be eating people.
No.
I don't think
Alive.
we should be eating people.
Like, very different from, like, a cannibal thing. It's not that. It's, like, eating them whole. I know a lot about Vor. I've been on the internet for a long time.
Okay.
So that's all I'll say.
But yeah, somewhere in between eating the dentist and now the plant is just fine to eat a whole body. Yeah. Presumably because he grows every time he eats.
And someone watching this just has an awakening. Something awakens within them.
Uh-huh.
And good luck to them.
Uh-huh. What an Al Vor's internet.
R.I.P. Vor Mushnick. Oh, so this is fun. This is a moment that's like the song isn't on the soundtrack. It's called "The Meek Shall Inherit," or it is on the soundtrack, but there's like a big chunk of the song that doesn't appear in the movie. There's no real melody. It's just sort of like a beat to background music. And Seymour just is going like fully viral now.
Yeah, it's almost like a, what do they call it when it's like a Gilbert and Sullivan, like, it's one of those, you know? And
like a patter.
Like, now you're on the cover of Life magazine. Yeah, patter. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And it's also, we get like a lot of, it's from like a bunch of different voices, right? Like the RCC girls, but then also like the press are sort of narrating this.
That was a great shot where the RCC girls are like in black dresses with like white highlights and white sunglasses in like the press room, and like everyone's sitting at their typewriters and they're like strategically placed in there. Yeah.
Every single one of their outfits in this movie.
A+.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
No notes.
Beautiful costuming. And so this is our montage that's like Seymour has now hit his limit and decides that he has to escape. And so he takes a moment to propose to Audrey, like you do. And then as he's leaving, Audrey too, who has teeth now, big teeth, catches him and demands more. And rather than just leaving, Seymour's like, yeah, okay, but you're only getting ground round this time. That's his line, is like, I'm not gonna stop feeding this monster. I'm just gonna make it animal instead of human.
Yeah.
Even though there was a very clear line earlier in the movie that the plant does not want meat and it needs to be blood and it needs to be alive.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'm going to go get you some ground round. That's all you deserve. And then I'm sure everything will be fine after I leave.
And this sort of feels like another just like excuse to move the plot along, because while he's gone to the butcher shop, Audrey too grabs a quarter from the till using one of their articulated tentacles and then calls Audrey from a payphone. Audrey is now in a full wedding dress because, as previously mentioned, she's just been proposed to. And again, that's how that works. And, like, coaxes her into the shop. And I realize this is the first time that Audrey sees the plant talking and stuff. I do want to defend the, like, if I saw that from across an alley, that it was a plant talking to me on the phone, I would go look at it. I wouldn't be able to resist that.
A couple things about this to me is that, one, Audrey 2 calls Audrey, and it has the Levi Stubbs voice, and it is flirting with her, and she's like, Seymour? Like, no. 2, I don't know if anything makes me laugh as hard in this movie as after the plant hangs up the phone, he takes one of his tendrils and he checks the coin return slot to see if he can get his quarterback. And he doesn't. He doesn't get his quarterback. He just like, flip, no, okay.
How would he know? How would he know? That's the best part about it.
He's been watching people use that phone.
He's been watching everybody come in and use that payphone.
So Audrey comes in the shop and Audrey too tries to eat her. And Seymour returns just in time to pull Audrey from the plant's mouth. She's like fully just her lower legs sticking out, but apparently that's not where the digestion happens, so it's fine.
Right, yeah. Yeah. No chewing, no bite marks, just going straight down.
no acid that would, I presume, dissolve the bodies inside the mouth, which is how it works with Venus flytraps. Hat tip, Tyson.
Right, none of that. Yeah, they get out and they flee. Here's where we get our final cameo in the form of Jim Belushi. They're in the middle of a reprise, and he like literally cuts off their reprise with an offer to breed and sell an Audrey 2 to every household in America. Andy, I think you know more about this than I do, but like what we see in the movie now is a rewritten ending, because the original movie, I think from here goes to that's the end of the world.
So, I mean, what happens here in the movie is that they basically are able to somehow defeat the plant. And I guess we'll get into the last shot of the movie. But what happened originally in the stage play is that Audrey is dying from almost being eaten by the plant. And they shot this ending too, and they put it on the movie. Audrey's almost dying, and then she says, you know what? Let the plant finish me so that you can go on to live your dreams. And so the plant eats her, and then Seymour is going to kill himself by jumping off a building. And then that is when this salesman, who was Paul Dooley in the original version, not Jim Belushi, they couldn't get Paul Dooley back for the reshoots, he interrupts him and he says, hey, I actually took some clippings of your plant, and I think that we should sell it all over the place and make Audrey 2s in every household. And in the original ending, it works. And we see the RCC girls in front of an American flag, and they give this somber song called Don't Feed the Plants that is all about how the plants have infiltrated every house in the world, and there is mass carnage as we see shots of the plants like stomping over cities like Godzilla. Mm-hmm. And that's like basically the ending of the movie.
Yeah. Audrey 2 takes over the world.
Yes, truly. And they shot that and they put it on and they test screened it. And people absolutely hated it. It was not getting... you have to get like over 50% favorable audience reviews to release a movie. And they were not getting over 13% with this ending on it. And Frank Oz thought about it, and he realized that, in the play, the plant eats everybody, and then at the end, the actors come out and bow, and everyone's cool with it. He's like, but in a movie, the actors don't come out and bow, and so audiences were just really mad that these characters that they had put their hearts onto for the last hour and a half just died and lost. And even though he believed that was the right ending, and that Menken and Ashman believed that was the right ending, because again, Seymour has done all this morally shaky stuff and does not deserve to just get off scot-free, but they realized that they had to reshoot this ending where it's a happy ending, or else the movie was not going to get released. And so they did, and the favorable audience reviews went up, and that's why we have the ending that we have. But I do recommend that you go on YouTube and search for the original ending. It's finally out there. It's pretty good. That being said, I love the song Mean Green Mother from Outer Space. I was just
going to say, in its stead, we get this like absolute banger, which is this movie is offering for the Oscars that year. I don't know if it won. I'm guessing it didn't, but
it didn't.
It should have. It's a full bop. It's sort of like Audrey 2's little... I remember there's a Spotify playlist that I found, which is actually, I think, where I first heard this song. It's called like musical villain songs that are bops. It's probably something pithier than that. And it's a villain masterpiece. So we get like Audrey 2's last stand as they're trapping Seymour in the shop and just like fully destroying the shop, like tentacles through the tile floor. There's a moment where we see like little plant tentacle offsprings that have their own mouths now, and like they give the little chorus for it.
A thing that they did in the play and in the original 1960 movie is that originally all the people that the plant would eat, the plant would start blooming flowers, and they would have the faces of its victims. And the last shot of the 1960 movie is the Seymour flower opening up, and he just says, "I didn't mean to," and then he falls, and that's the end.
That's it.
Yeah.
Seymour even gets his pants pulled down by Audrey 2 in the fight.
Yeah, and that's his big comeuppance.
Yeah, that's what you get.
And here the very like Deus Ex Machina ending is that Seymour pulls out an exposed electrical cable and just touches it to Audrey 2, and that's enough to make it explode.
Just into nothing, just into dust.
Yeah.
Right.
And they go on to live their perfect suburban life on somehow the exact house that Audrey dreamed about, because they could probably only afford one set. And we see the RCC girls dance by. We don't see Tisha Campbell's face because she clearly was not available for the reshoots. But as we pan down, we see that there's one Audrey 2 bud in their front yard. How'd it get there? Doesn't matter. Doesn't make sense. This is a reshot ending.
It's a very much, you know how a movie or the ending would be like the end and then a question mark would come up? Like this was very much that kind of, the end.
Yeah. Leaving it open for a sequel.
Which I still want, by the way. I think it would make sense. I guess I just want to mention a couple things. One is that, this song was nominated for Best Song. It was beaten by Berlin's Take My Breath Away from Top Gun. And even if that hadn't been nominated, or any of the 3 other bangers from the Top Gun soundtrack hadn't been nominated, Somewhere Out There from An American Tale was also nominated, and so it would not have won. This was nominated for practical effects at the Oscars as well, and it was beaten by Aliens.
Ooh.
I know, that's a tough call. Also, something that was around in my childhood was a board game that was based on this movie called Feed Me. Does anyone remember this?
I do, because we watched a commercial of it.
Well, let's listen to that commercial.
It's the game of Feed Me. I'm a hungry plant. Feed me. Better watch your hand. Toss the dice. They'll tell you how many marbles I must eat. But if I swallow on your turn, you're out. Thanks for the treat. Feed me. He's a hungry plant. Feed me. Better watch your hand. I don't care who feeds me. Just drop them in my mouth. Give me more. Can't get enough. Oh, won't you feed me now? I win. Feed me. From Milton Bradley.
From Milton Bradley.
You gotta love a toy that tells you the rules of the game in the commercial.
Yeah.
Also, this was something that I remember from my childhood. There was also a cartoon based on this movie on Fox Animation when I was a kid called Little Shop of Horrors. Let's just listen to a little bit of the theme.
I wanna go to the little shop. Take me to the little shop. All right, it's time for me to bust a rhyme, so sit back and chill for a while. I'm coming at ya.
Wow.
Style, so get ready for a funny bone overload at the little shop. Yeah, boy. In
Oh,
full
God.
effect. Yo, the little shop posse's gaining respect, so break out before I put you in check. Now, when you
Oh,
go to the
boy,
shop,
that is
what you
horrible.
get ain't what you see, so just be careful. Getting close to me.
There you go, that's enough.
Jeez, that is awful. They had so many hip-hop groups in that just little opening. They had Public Enemy, they had Cool Mo D. There's just, that was awful. Yeah, boy. Oh, jeez.
Okay, again, we don't have a lot of time here, but I do want to talk briefly about what a reboot would look like. If you guys have any ideas. A reboot was being talked about in like 2019, where it's going to be Taron Egerton as Seymour. Stop with the muscly nerds. I don't need it.
I need someone much more scrawny.
Yeah, and here's my opening pitch for that. It's Kyle Mooney.
Oh, I could get on board with that. I could get on board with that. Mm-hmm.
I don't know who. It's so hard to conceptualize someone else being Audrey 2. It was going to be Billy Porter in this seemingly abandoned film version, which wouldn't be bad. I have a pitch as well for that. It's someone who it seems like they're probably a pretty bad person. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm only talking about their voice in this instance, and that is Mystical.
Real bad person. It seems a little high-pitched, though. I don't think he has the bass, necessarily.
Well, I think that we have to go right into the song here, because the way this show works, Marz is your first time on the show, Tina, you're somehow back on the 3rd episode, is that we wrap up with a pitch for a new song when they remake the movie, because we're trying to get that Best Original Song Oscar when they remake it, right? So I had a few ideas for a song. Mr. Mushnick doesn't have a song. I was like, let's write him a song. I couldn't do it. I couldn't come up with anything. I was like, let's write a song where Audrey has any kind of empowerment or agency. That didn't speak to me. That's not
too fundamental of a change in the character.
And so I went with my third idea, and it was just, what if we got to meet Audrey's first victim, and it wasn't a human, it wasn't the blood from Seymour. Even before that, if Audrey learns of her taste for blood by encountering by encountering 3 mean gnats, okay? So 3 mean gnats come into the shop, right? And they encounter Audrey too. And I guess well, that's all I'm picturing puppets. I'm picturing Henson Workshop puppets. Like,
that's part of it, is I think it'd be a really fun way to like expand that element of the movie.
Seymour closes up the shop one night, and as he closes, we hear bzzz, and they get in the door. And then we do a hard zoom, and there's these 3 gnat puppets, okay?
I was wondering, I was like, gnats? Or like Nat is like short for Nathaniel? Or... Okay.
One of them is Nathaniel, one of them is Natalie.
Uh-huh. And the other one is
Nate.
Nat King Cole.
Yeah, Nat.
So here's the song. Let's go into it. This is a musical, the movie, the podcast exclusive. This is the Gnats of Skid Row. Again, I don't know about this one. Here we go.
Well, we're the Gnats who run Skid Row since we were born 4 days ago. We'll suck your blood, and then we'll eat your trash, and then we'll fuck your girl, and then we'll kick your ass. We want a bite to eat, the Skid Row trash sucks. Dumpster diving gives me reflux. Things are starting to look up for the Gnats of Skid Row. We flew into this shop by chance, but look around, I'm gonna cream my pants. This room is filled with plants and fruits, still on the vine and full of juice. Whoops! I'm feeding on your blood orange. Whoops! I'm munching on your dill. Whoops! This tomato plant is my new dwelling. And now you're rethinking your brand of repellent. Cause we're the Gnats who run Skid Row like our ancestors 2 weeks ago. We'll eat your plants just anywhere, and then we'll fly in your ear and make you swat at the air. You look dumb. This place is Eden without the fall. It's a buffet and we can eat it all. Things are starting to look up for the Gnats of Skid Row. Hey, what's that plant? It looks like a head. I'm gonna make it my canopy bed. Smell those pheromones? I think there's a hot girl. Hey man, you okay? Your eyes are little swirls. There's something different about this one. I can tell. I'm gonna check it out. Y'all can go to hell. Things are starting to look up for the Gnats of Skid Row. Uh-oh.
Big chomp at the end there. The 2 surviving gnats go to fly away. They hit the window. They fall on the floor. And then we just hear the scraping as the plant moves itself over to the dead gnats on the floor so it can eat them too. It now has a taste for blood.
I love it. Sold.
I love the conceit that these gnats wear pants.
That's the biggest problem with it, isn't it? Is that what are they actually creaming? It's as good a time as any to remind everyone that the home for all of the songs that you hear here on Musical, the Movie, the podcast is our Patreon, patreon.com/dumbfun, which is also the home for 30 characters, as well as another podcast that you're a part of, Marz, Fanny Falls Demon Hunter, where you play the sexy mummy, Nathan.
I know, it's been years since I've been a love interest.
You do it well, I gotta say.
Yeah. It's a great performance. Check out Fanny Falls Demon Hunter. It's a fake rewatch show for a fake Buffy show, basically, that happened in the 90s. And we have clips and everything, and Marz is incredible as the mummy. So yeah, Marz, what is there anything that you'd like to plug in terms of stuff coming up?
I am all over the country. I'm going to be in Rochester, Minnesota at the end of September, headlining at the new Goonies Comedy Club for a weekend. So
wow, good enough.
Yep.
Goonies are good enough.
MarzTimms.com.
Tina, what about you?
Nothing to plug. Once again, I'm not a comedian. I'm not an entertainer, but I'm so glad you guys had me back on.
Yeah,
Thank
you.
you.
Plug your regular appearances on the musical, the podcast.
Yes, you can hear me in episode 1, and you can also hear me again in episode 2.
Where were you? Were you ever a swing for an actual performance?
No, I wasn't understudy in a community theater play a very long time ago here in Wisconsin.
Called?
That was about as close as I got. I think that one was the best Christmas pageant ever.
Cool. That's going to be your credit in the description of this episode. Steph?
You know what I want to plug? Being kind to a nurse. Anytime you have to interact with a nurse, They have a really hard job, and thanks to their hard work, I'm going to come back on our podcast with weird body facts.
Yeah, look, Steph's in nursing school, so hit that Patreon up. Hit that Patreon up, and Steph gets a taste of that money. So help us get Steph through nursing school. For God's sake, we need money. Guys, thank you so much for being here to talk about Little Shop. Such a delight.
Cut this part out.
You'll just end with the voice of a gnat.
Chop. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time, where we will be talking about, oh God, we've watched 2 good movies in a row, so we had to give ourselves a dreadful assignment for the next one. We will be watching Dear Evan Hansen for our next episode. So
Tina's face, I wish you could see it.
join us in 2 weeks. God, I wish you could see Tina's face. Join us in 2 weeks for Dear Evan Hansen. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Musical the Movie the Podcast. Musical the Movie the Podcast. Musical the Movie the Podcast with Andy and Steph. Fun Dome.